This is episode number 408 of the InnerFight podcast. Back again with another. Dre, I'm excited about this show.
This guy sounds crazy.
Don't forget, guys, the show is sponsored by Smith Street Paleo. Big shout out to those guys. And as always, hop over to iTunes, rate and review the podcast, share the podcast with all your friends. This is the Health and Fitness Podcast, the biggest health and fitness show in the region. Unofficially, officially, and however you want it to be. And we want it to grow, so please reach out to your friends. And if you enjoy this show, share it with them. If you don't particularly enjoy this show, I guarantee you, show number 404. I hope I've got this right. Yeah, show number 404 you're going to enjoy massively, especially if you're into athletic performance. I had on Brian MacArthur in that show, a sub 15-minute 5K. That was pretty big. You missed that one as well, Dre. And the last week's show, 406, was actually an incredible show with Deborah Madelin.
Yeah, that was
said it properly.
Very special show, too.
Very special show. She's the author of a book called You've Got This, and she is a packaging scientist. So some really interesting stuff going on there. And folks, don't forget the 3-minute shows come out on Sunday, every Sunday. Enough of the shameless plugs. Let's jump straight into today's show. We are joined by a friend of a friend, Matt MacDonald, who is the Physical Education Curriculum Manager at New York University in Abu Dhabi. Matt, welcome to the show. That's a big mouthful, that bit, by the way.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Excited.
Mate, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're not actually American, so I was going to make that mistake when we first started talking, and then I realized it was a little bit of a Canadian accent. You're from Canada. Tell us where you're from and a little bit of your background.
Yeah, so I grew up in Canada, east coast of Canada, Halifax, Nova Scotia, and been in the Middle East now for about 4 years.
Right.
And as you said earlier, working at New York University, Abu Dhabi. So
very cool.
Yeah.
How does a guy from that part of Canada end up doing what you do in Abu Dhabi?
So, funny story, actually. A girl that I ended up going to university with, she moved over here, her husband in the oil industry. She came over here, and I had an online coaching business. I was doing personal training back in Canada, and she was over here, and she was looking to lose weight for her wedding. And she saw me advertising my services sort of online, and she contacted me and said, hey, I would like to lose some weight for our wedding. Can you help us out? So I started coaching them online through Skype, mostly diet-related stuff. Wow.
And then it's a natural step to actually come out and play in the Middle East, right?
Yeah, like I was always I was really curious about the Middle East. And, she was always sharing her pictures and stuff on Facebook, and I was like, I gotta check this out for myself.
As a side note, this is not really overly relevant, but I always like to get a feel. I've lived here, obviously, for a long time. From Canada, you look at the Middle East before you came over here. What do you sort of think about the place? Like, there must be a lot of different stuff going on in your mind. What was in your mind about the Middle East?
Yeah, so my first international travel experience happened in 2011. I ended up doing a teaching semester in Australia.
Right.
And from there, it was sort of a stepping stone. I went to Indonesia, really sort of got my feet wet there with some international travel experience. And then since then, I was like, I got to get back over and do some more travel. And I knew that this was so central.
Yeah.
But, it's not what it appears on CNN, right? It's Scott says that all the time. It's like, it's very, very different, and it's been nothing but a positive experience as I got here.
Really? Family okay when you told them you were moving to the Middle East?
Yeah, I mean, they watch a lot of CNN, like, I'm not going to lie. They'll chuckle when they hear that, but of course, they've been encouraging and supporting in everything I've ever done.
Have they been over here visiting you?
Yeah, they were actually here last year, and they loved it. They're planning another trip sometime soon.
Cool, man.
Were your parents a little bit like, what the hell, why are you moving to Dubai when you first came?
Yeah, in the beginning they were very skeptical, but very quickly as they saw pictures and I told them stuff, I mean, they came over and saw it with their own eyes and realized that it's actually a great place.
It's just funny, I guess, how the news and how, as you said there, Matt, how CNN sort of paints it as something it's not. Mate, that's a background, but really what we want to jump into is more your athletic side. You've done Ironmans, you've ridden your bike in multiple different countries, across countries. Talk to us a little bit about that, and let's jump into some details.
Yeah, so I grew up very, very active as a kid, playing multiple sports throughout high school, athlete of the year, grade 11, grade 12, very much anything I get my hands on, that's what I sort of wanted to do. And then I went away to university. I got into running, so I was running at the college that I went to, St. Francis Xavier University, in a small town, Nova Scotia. and participated cross-country, track and field, and then sort of took a sidestep from sort of the competitive aspect of sport, and then got really into lifting weights.
Right.
And you wouldn't tell now that I actually lifted weights at any point in my life.
You look skinnier than I do at the moment, which is, anyway.
So, I then got sidetracked. I ended up going down to the States with my parents on a holiday, and I saw this video called Running the Sahara. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah.
Matt Damon?
Yes.
And so anyways, it really sparked my interest. I didn't even know people could run, like ultra marathons, run 100 miles. I never even knew that was possible.
Yeah.
And there was no gym when I was down on vacation, so I got back into running.
Right.
And one sort of lonely, rainy day, I ended up watching a few other videos, came across this guy named Michael Arnstein, a.k.a. the Fruitarian.
Right.
And he was running these 100-mile running races only subsisting on fruit, raw fruits and vegetables.
That is so crazy, man.
Crazy, I know. And again, at this point, I was pretty much the exact opposite. I was eating maybe 1 or 2 pieces of fruit a day, and was only after my workouts because I thought that it's going to spike my my blood sugar levels, and then I'm going to be in this non-fat burning zone. And my diet at that time was very, very super high protein, super low carb. And then he mentioned this book. It was called 80-10-10, and I was like, man, I got to check this out by Dr. Doug Graham. So I checked out this book, read it in about 2 days, and I was like, this makes sense. I'm gonna try this thing out, and sort of had one sort of big last steak dinner New Year's Eve, and then January 1st I just went full on raw vegan, cooked food. That would have been 2013.
2013.
Wow.
So coming 5 years now.
Yeah.
What was it, mate? Because obviously last year when What the Health was released, we saw a lot of people going, "Oh yeah, I should be a vegan now," and all this stuff. And there is an advance in veganism. But back then when you sort of decided to make that jump, what did society say about it? Not that you should care, but it probably wasn't a very common thing to do then, right?
Yeah, I mean, veganism's certainly come a long way in 5 years, right?
Yeah.
5 years ago, this wasn't as mainstream as it is today.
It's like CrossFit.
Yeah, a little bit, right?
Yeah. And, I think that when I came to this sort of lifestyle, I'll be honest, it didn't have to do anything with the environment. It didn't have to do with animals. I just wanted to become a better athlete.
Right.
And so I was willing to try all these different things, and at the time I was taking heaps of supplements and protein powders, and I just wanted to move away from that and just see sort of how my body responded.
Yeah.
So, I think that What the Health definitely gets the conversation, out there, and it moves things forward. But I think your body's like the ultimate playground, right? You experiment, you try different things, and you sort of find out what works for you.
How did you measure it then? You say you're interested in advancing performance. What are some measures that would sort of resonate with people? Like, did you have a 5K time pre-2013? And give us some examples, because I think that's super interesting.
Yeah. So starting out, again, I had shifted. I was mostly doing weights at the time.
Yeah.
Moved more back into endurance sports. When I set the goal to go raw vegan for an entire year, so people might not even know what raw vegan is.
Yeah, explain that.
So essentially, raw vegan is you are not eating any cooked food whatsoever. So mostly subsisting on fruit, because fruit has calories. Vegetables, you get a lot of micronutrients, but it doesn't really have a lot of calories. So mostly eating fruit during the day, a huge massive salad for dinner.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what I did for an entire year.
Just to go over that again, you would not heat up any food. You don't cook any food at all.
Yeah, no cooking for that first year.
So the microwave's out the way. You've got a spare space now where your cooker used to be. You don't need. I mean, do you even boil water? Do you have hot drink? Would you have hot drinks?
I mean, that gets when it gets into the technicalities and the certain temperatures and stuff that you could heat it to.
Right.
But essentially, when I made that goal to go raw vegan, I also made another goal, and that was to run my first marathon.
Right.
So I had 6 months to train for a marathon. After a huge period of not running, ran my first marathon, ran 3 hours, 2 seconds, qualified for Boston on my first attempt.
Wow.
And that was on raw fruits and vegetables. And everyone was telling me, where are you going to get your protein? Where are you going to get your iron? Where are you going to get your calcium? You're going to be anemic. All of these things. And the entire time I was checking blood results, checking all those biomarkers along the way. Yeah. And I was doing nothing but thriving. 6 months later, I ran my first ultra marathon, 50-kilometer running race. Actually ran faster than the 3-hour marathon. Wow. I finished first 3 hours 32 minutes.
Wow!
And how fast is a 3-hour marathon? Is that like?
It's quick. Yeah, I mean,
what is an average runner?
it's difficult now, but average, like the
4 hours?
Sub 4 is like what people want. Anything sub 3:30, you're moving pretty good. Sub 3:15, you're decent, and 3 and under, mate. And until if to put it in perspective, about 7 or 8 years ago, when Haile Gebrselassie set the world record for the marathon, I think it was 2:08. So that's in the last 5 to maybe 10 years when Gebrselassie said this guy can run. Okay,
yeah, looks like
run.
it.
Well, but mate, one question. Sorry, pre your move to raw veganism, you hadn't run a marathon. Yeah. So, but what did you have any? Is there a 10-mile time or a 5K time? What times do you have that can compare?
It's difficult to compare. There was such a huge break in the time between 2007 when I last competed,
right,
and then going into 2013. There's a huge, massive shift. But in terms of things that I observed physically, not as sore. Definitely not as sore. So waking up in the morning,
so
just
less inflammation.
Less inflammation for sure. It's an anti-inflammatory diet, right? Fruits and vegetables, right?
Yeah.
So high antioxidants. So eating that way certainly reduced inflammation.
Yeah.
Deeper quality sleep. Sleeping way deeper.
Really?
Okay. The other thing is too, all of a sudden I had this crummy earwax in my ears, my nose, all my sinuses, all of that stuff was amazing.
Really?
Before, if I wanted to use the bathroom, well, I had to have a coffee before.
Really?
Just, certainly a large lack of fiber in the diet.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're eating 60, 70, up to 100 grams of fiber a day, and you're going to the bathroom 3-4 times a day, no problem.
Yeah.
So improved digestion. So when you're an athlete, the less food that you have in your system, right?
Yeah.
The lighter you're going to be. And for endurance sports, that means everything. Yeah. So if you have an extra 1 kilo of food that's completely out of your digestive system, you're going to be that much faster running a 5K, 10K time. So definitely huge improved digestion. I felt overall better mental clarity. There was none of this brain fogs, none of these like swings, sort of like it wasn't 3 o'clock and I was like, better have a coffee. Yeah. It was like, just more sustained energy.
Did you drink coffee during that year?
That entire year, no coffee whatsoever.
What do you reckon, Dre?
that must suck, to be honest. But
I'm a coffee lover too. But you know what? I had tried to quit drinking coffee multiple times during that period.
Why?
I think it was because. Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I had quit multiple times throughout that period, and it never stuck. And then as soon as I switched over to a high carb, low fat, raw vegan diet, it was like. The energy, I didn't need coffee to get that energy.
I would love to hear, how does a day in your life look like diet-wise? What do you, when you wake up, what do you have for breakfast, etc.?
So today, for example, I was just saying before the show, got up, trained with a friend of mine. We ran 13 miles. And then afterwards, about 1.5 liters of water. 30 minutes later, about 15, 16 oranges. Big, huge.
15 or 16 oranges.
How do you have them? Juiced, or you just eat the whole thing?
No, I mean, you can juice them. For me, I prefer to actually physically eat them. I think that there's this satiation mechanism which happens when you're if you're drinking things. I don't necessarily think that your body really registers the sort of the caloric value of them.
That's pretty interesting.
It's 100%. That's actually why when I see people on juice, like on prolonged juice diets, it's actually super dangerous because they're not releasing. You're not breaking down the food in your mouth, so the enzymes, the whole enzyme process for digestion starts in your mouth.
I never thought about that.
And Dre, wake up.
That's really cool.
Yeah, there's an enzyme in our mouth. It's called salivary amylase.
Yeah,
and essentially,
I know about that.
That breaks down. It's the first stage of digestion.
So you ate 15 oranges.
15 oranges.
Man, that must take a long time to peel.
No, you know what?
Do you have somebody who peels for you?
No, my fiance sat patiently by me while I ate them.
Really?
But how
does she eat? I know we're all over the place here, but this is so interesting.
Mate, she just peels them.
What sort of diet does she follow?
So she eats vegan too as well.
She eats
vegan,
but
so her mornings, I usually make her smoothie in the morning.
Yep.
She would have about 3 bananas, a package of frozen strawberries mixed with about 10, 15 dates, blended in a Vitamix. And then her dinner would usually be like rice and lentils. Dinner might be rice and lentils or some type of...
So you're on the same page, basically.
Yeah, I mean, she's super supportive, again, in terms of what I'm doing, and she's found what works for her, and I found what works for me. So I think, again, it's sort of like I'm not advocating that everyone goes raw vegan. I'm advocating that people do some experimenting and maybe start eating a little bit more fruit and veg in their diet. And I think, whether you're paleo, whether you're flexitarian, whether you're a full-on carnivore, we all agree you need fruits and vegetables in your diet. And so whether you're looking at me sort of on one end of the extreme, it's it's sort of just a matter of personal preference.
Had you heard of flexitarian? I heard this term literally 3 days ago. You're the second person in 3 days. Have you heard what it is?
No.
I Googled it, and they just absolutely, people are just knocking lumps out of each other on the internet for it. But it's basically people that on the weekend or when they feel that they want to, they have a steak. But generally, you could say that 90% of their time is in a vegetarian state. That's basically what it is. And I actually found quite a few
flexitarian.
Yeah, it's called flexitarian.
Sounds so homemade.
Doesn't it? And I'm so happy you brought it up, Matt, because it's something so interesting. So people that, and this is the thing, because we had obviously go back to what the health. People go, oh yeah, I'm vegan, but I still eat fish. Okay, so you're not vegan at all. It's kind of like that. But yeah, flexitarian, mate.
So yeah, I think we also live in this world where we love to put labels on things.
Yeah.
And so I'm not huge on, while I do label myself as a vegan, plant-based person, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
Just because you're vegan or you're plant-based doesn't mean you're necessarily healthy. And I think that's really, really important, because you could be vegan, you could be drinking Coca-Cola and eating Oreos, which are vegan.
Yeah.
So I advocate a whole food, plant-based diet, not refined anything. So the closer you can get to its original state, I believe, is optimal for human health. Oils are 100% refined foods, right? You remove the fiber, you remove the water, and you're left with 100% pure fat. So I think that we want to go back. So I would say eat the olive instead of drinking olive oil or putting olive oil on your things. Instead of having orange juice, have the actual orange.
Full orange, right.
Yeah. So because food is a package deal, and the moment we start altering it and messing with it, I think that's where we lose a lot of the benefits which it has.
Just like with training.
Yeah, pretty much. So, mate, 15 oranges post-run. What's the rest of the day looked like or going to look like for you?
Yeah, so I guess I'll phrase it this way. I think that every species has a species-specific diet.
Right.
And I think that the closer we can move towards more fruits and vegetables, the more species-specific we're going to be.
Right.
And so I don't count calories. I don't restrict periods of time of eating. I eat till I'm satiated, and then I stop eating, right? Like a cow's not in the field, and it's like, oh, I better stop eating. I've hit my macros for the day, or it eats intuitively.
Yeah.
And so I think that when you're eating foods, which your body is designed to eat, you'll eat intuitively with that, and you won't overeat. So I ate oranges. When my hunger starts to pick back up, I'll eat more oranges. And then when dinner time rolls around, I'll probably make some sort of like low-fat, high-carb, vegan, no-oil added dish. And that might be like a coconut curry with rice, or that could be potatoes and a head of iceberg lettuce. I like to keep things super simple. I don't like making things complicated. And for me, I have a pretty busy life. So when I wake up in the morning and I'm going to train, afterwards, I don't want to be thinking about all these different things that I have to mix together. I just want to peel some oranges and eat them.
Mate, obviously one of the biggest problems that people have is the relationship that they have with food, and sort of how that creates social interaction, how that creates downtime and all of this. How do you see your relationship? Because obviously you can't go to a restaurant and, or correct me if I'm wrong, but it could be quite difficult to go to a restaurant and just order 15 oranges. And if you did, they'd probably charge you an absolute fortune. So how's your, what I'd say, relationship in that area? How's that changed, or do you not care?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, a lot of that what we were referring to earlier about raw veganism, that was in my first year. And again, that was more me less like testing the waters, being like, what is the human body capable of? And if I do this, what are going to be the results?
Yeah.
Blood work, perfect.
Really?
Athletic performance, very happy with it.
Yeah.
So I think that right now I'm in a place where, again, it's more of like I'm sort of flexible with it.
Right.
If I'm going to a restaurant and it's really important and they have like an amazing buffet, I'm going to eat the vegan version of that buffet.
Right.
I'm not going to eat or skip a meal.
Cool.
I think that does an injustice to sort of the plant-based vegan thing, is that you create all these rigid boundaries.
Yeah.
And like that gets no one anywhere. So I think that people want convenient. Fruit is convenient. Fruit is the original fast food. You peel, eat, right? It's super easy. And in the ideal world, it's like, what do you guys do when you guys go to a restaurant? Sure, sometimes you have to make bad decisions, but what are you making the other 90% of the time, right? Like when you have things under control. I think it's not about being dogmatic and being like, hey, this is black and white. It's like, hey, this is the ideal.
Yeah.
This is the gold standard. And if I don't hit gold today and I hit bronze, or I don't even place on the podium, who cares?
That's such a good mindset.
Wow. It is quite. But I think some people have think they have a similar mindset, but I imagine Matt's on the podium, as he said, probably like 90% of the time, and maybe not quite there 10%, whereas a lot of people with that similar, or trying to adopt that similar approach, actually have worse stats.
For sure.
I think that's where it breaks down a little bit, you know?
I think also, too, I have a fiancé, and we like to travel a lot.
Yeah.
And so maybe the gold standard on that day is I'm going to have fruit for breakfast, and if we end up having rice and curry for lunch, sure, am I going to feel super energetic after eating like a full, heavy rice and curry meal? Maybe not, but hey, I'm on vacation, and I'm with my fiancé, and the time's right. So, yeah, you set these standards for yourself, and then you're flexible with them.
Your sport generally is endurance, mate. You go long. In the last 10 years of endurance, there's been a massive move to low-carb, high-fat fueling. What's your views on that, and how is your approach? Like, your approach is obviously high-carb and low-fat. Have you tried the other way of high-fat and low-carb? Give us your thoughts on that.
I haven't tried high-fat, low-carb.
Right.
And I think that's probably going back to my understanding of anatomy and physiology.
Right.
I studied human kinetics in university, and Krebs cycle, glucose-derived ATP. That's always sort of been something that I've found, I guess, comfort in, and that's something that I sort of believe in, and I just see it as being sort of the ultimate elixir. So I've moved in that direction.
Right.
And I also don't see. I see it beyond being an athlete.
Right.
I'm looking at healthy populations around the world, not people that are living to be 70 and 80. I'm looking at centenarians. Right. So when you're looking at centenarians, you're looking at people from Okinawa, Japan. You're looking at all these people around the world who are living to be 100. I'm looking at their diet, and how can I use their diet also for athletic performance?
Right.
So it's not just athletic performance. If it was an athletic performance, we just get on the juice, get on the hot sauce, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's more to it than just that. There's so many. You have to think long term. Don't look at the micro. You have to look at the macro.
But if you were to try to put out the best results, like let's say you wanted to run the fastest marathon possible, would you still continue to be on the same diet, or would you make any changes?
I mean, if you look at the best runners in the world, Kenya, Ethiopia, what are the staples of their diet?
Yeah,
Ugali is a huge thing. Ugali, rice, teff.
What's ugali?
Ugali is corn, so ground down corn made into sort of like this porridge mixture. I actually had it recently when I was in Tanzania. But they're eating a predominantly carbohydrate-rich, whole food, plant-based diet. Does it say that they're 100%? No, but they're getting the majority of their calories from carbohydrate-rich foods.
Absolutely. What do you think, though, that there's a lot of it that could be actually down to a person's body type at a particular period of time? I'm not saying that we're all born able to use more carbohydrate or more fat. I do believe that we do a lot of damage, so we get to a state where some of the receptors, if people have been on if people are on a super high carb diet, which is too high in sugar, we're going to have issues with insulin receptors and this kind of stuff. So the damage is done. But do you still think that some people's body types just work a lot better with one way of eating than another?
I think we have to look at humans similar to what we look at other animals. Every animal has a species-specific diet. Does that mean some animals eat more than others?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, right.
And so I think that we tend to... So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the term reductionism, but we like to break things down into its smaller part.
Yes.
And sort of the idea is that if we understand these smaller parts, then we can understand the whole thing. But food is a package deal.
Right.
Okay, so we like to say, oh, this has protein, therefore it will do this and this for me.
Yeah.
But it also has saturated fat, it also has cholesterol, it also has hormones, also has the other things with it. It doesn't have fiber. So I don't think food is inherently good or bad.
Right.
Food falls on this spectrum. The more whole and natural it is, the better it is for you.
Yeah.
And I think another thing we should clarify just for all the viewers out there is that when we refer to carbohydrates, there's good carbs and there's bad carbs, right? Are we talking about carbohydrates in Coca-Cola?
Yeah.
Or are we talking about carbohydrates found in whole plant-based foods like fruits and vegetables and oranges. If you took someone and you said, I want you to eat 3,000 calories for a year, okay? That person, you go and you put them on a McDonald's only diet, 3,000 calories a day. Yeah. Then the next year, they come over to my camp, and they come train with me, and I put them on 3,000 calories a day, and I feed them whole plant-based foods. Yeah. That person is going to be different at the end of that year because even calories and where those calories come affect hormone levels. For sure. And hormone levels are super important for body composition.
So macro diet, goodbye, out of the window? Or are you big against macro diets in general?
I think where I'm at, I see it as a whole. I see the food as a package deal. So if you're getting your macros from Snickers bars and ice cream, I think that the way you feel and the way that affects your long-term health is going to be completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. I think that's the biggest problem. But where do you get to, okay, you had 15 oranges for your post-run or your breakfast this morning. Did you plan to have 15? Do you get to 12 and you go, yeah, I'm getting full here?
Three more, you can do it.
Three more, and then you get to 15 and go, yeah, that's enough. Or, how do you manage it? Because I actually think the reason why people have gone into a macro-based diet and counting calories is because they don't know how to manage what's going on. I agree with what you said about the cow, but the nature of a lot of people, if they were put in a room full of chocolate and left there, they'd finish all the chocolate. They just can't stop themselves. So the best way is almost managing the macros and restriction. So how did you get to 15 this morning is sort of the question.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So when you take something like the example you gave of chocolate. Yeah. So chocolate, what is chocolate? Chocolate is a mixture of simple carbohydrates, simple sugars, and fats. Yeah. It's about 50-50 blend. Right. And that just so happens to be the bliss point when we can't shut off our mechanism and we continue to indulge even though we know we've gone past that comfortable state. Yeah. So we're sort of hijacking our natural senses to say, stop eating. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so when you're eating something that comes from a whole food, maybe your viewers listening right now and they're like, 15 oranges. I can't eat 15 oranges. Yeah. Well, if you ran 21 kilometers this morning, you probably could eat 15 oranges. Yeah, so it all is relative to what you're doing. Yeah. If you're in office work and you sit in an office chair all day and you don't even get out of go for a walk or anything in the morning, maybe your limit is 5. But I think that when you intuitively listen to your body has these signals, and it will tell you when to stop eating. We have this thing in our stomach, okay? Stretch receptors in our stomach. And as our stomach gets bigger and bigger and bigger, those stretch receptors signal our brain, and they say, stop eating. Yeah. But what we're doing is we're creating a situation where our foods are refined, and those stretch receptors aren't happening, and then the result is that cheesecake looks pretty good.
Yeah. Wow. And let's go and get more of it. So how does it, obviously, as you said, you used to do quite a lot of coaching, personal training and stuff. Someone comes to you, and let's take what we see a lot of, someone that's got about 30% body fat, they're maybe 10 to 15 kilos overweight. What's your go-to approach for someone of that? Should people be moving to a plant-based diet? What is your go-to approach? Because, like it or not, your way, you've managed it. To some people it's extreme. My way is my way. To some people it's extreme. But as professionals, we're trying to guide the general population into, like you've said, a better way of living and better choices. So what's your go-to... Andre, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this.
Especially if we're talking about, let's take a specific example, like a parent who has, a spouse and 2 kids, because then it becomes a lot more complicated to be able to change your diet. What's your go-to?
Again, we're sort of talking about this one-size-fits-all strategy. Yeah. I coach people, and I find out, what does your daily life look like? Let me live with you for a day. Yeah. Let me come over to your house and cook with you and your daughter. Let me see how your day is set up, and then you can adjust accordingly. But the reality is people who have gotten to be 300 pounds, 200 kilos more, big people, they didn't get that way eating 15 oranges. Okay, they got that way because they were eating calorie-rich foods per bite, which wasn't shutting off the satiety mechanism, And so then they end up keeping overindulge.
Yeah.
So I think it's all about finding out sort of what works for that person. But when you're eating calorie-rich foods, you're gonna overeat. When
Right.
you're eating calories that are very dilute in nature, when you're eating oranges, for example, one orange about 85 calories. Okay, so how are you physically? Same thing with potatoes, right?
Yeah.
You take a potato. People are so worried about carbohydrates turning into sugar, and sugar therefore is going to make them fat. We have receptor sites in our muscles that we store sugars in the form of glucose.
Yeah.
Okay, glycogen. And so most people, they're not doing that. Okay, so we have this overprotective mechanism that if we do end up overeating on carbohydrates, which no one's going to overeat on oranges or bananas because you're going to just stop eating when you're full. Okay, your body will either burn that off through dietary thermogenesis in the form of heat, or you'll store it in your muscle cells, and they'll say, "Oh, I gained a kilo this week." Did you gain a kilo of fat, or you gained a kilo of muscle glycogen retention water? It's carbohydrate.
Yeah.
For every carbohydrates, there's hydrogen with that water.
Yeah, of course.
So our body's storing. So bodybuilders, right? What do when they want to get super shredded?
Yeah.
They get rid of the carbs, right? Because carbs are going to store water.
Yeah.
So no one on the planet is getting fat from potatoes unless that potato has cheese and sour cream and butter and bacon on it, okay? I ate about 10 potatoes last night for dinner. I ate an entire kilo of potatoes last night for dinner.
How do you cook them?
Just boil them, steam them.
Do you put anything on them?
Just some type of condiment, maybe some type of hot sauce. Last night I used srirachas. Sriracha is a sort of a go-to for me. But again, people will be like, oh, srirachas, it has salt, it has sugar. Again, I'm not here to promote a purist diet. I'm here to promote something that's sustainable and long-term. If I could eat plain potatoes, I could, but it wouldn't be very pleasurable.
Yeah.
So,
what are you 5 to go vegetables and fruits? Like, if you had to choose 5, what are the best ones?
Oranges, potatoes, 3 left.
So my diet is usually by season.
Right.
So
okay, that's cool.
During Pakistani mango season, I'm eating only mangoes.
Pakistani mango season.
Yeah. When that switches over, and then
hey, Shine, when is Pakistani mango season? That's good knowledge.
Yeah.
He's from Pakistan.
And they are A quality. You can't get better mangoes anywhere else in the world. The second, Thailand. Thailand has insanely amazing fruits. Then you switch over, so now I'm on oranges. Sort of the bread and butter are always date and bananas. They're always available, and we obviously live in the best region in the world for dates. Yeah. If any of your podcast people listening are date people, any of these people out there owns a date company, I'm certainly looking for a date endorsement because dates are a major part of my diet. Yeah. There's some days that I'm drinking Dietary, which is essentially dates blended with water.
Dietary.
How many dates would you put for 500 mils of water? Or
so usually I would make like a big smoothie, 1.5 liters of water, and I'd put about 300 grams of dates in, which would be about 850 calories.
Yeah.
And so I'd maybe take one of those to work in the morning, maybe another one for the afternoon. But
just dates and water.
Dates blended with... Someone needs to patent this, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
You can get dates blended with milk, but dates with water, it's the ultimate post-workout meal.
It's very good. Do you use anything like almond milk or coconut milk or anything like that?
Yeah, it's sort of something that I would use more like if I was going to have coffee.
Yeah.
Which, again, I said earlier that during that first year, I wanted to be 100% pure and try that out.
Yeah.
And I think that now it's a little bit more flexible, right? It's like I said, I'm still going to go out to vegan restaurants. I'm still going to eat out with friends. We still have friends over. We entertain a lot. And coffee is something that I had this morning before my run. Yeah. And I would just use some type of soy or almond milk in that.
Yeah, so you'd have dates. So what do we got? We got oranges, potatoes, dates. What are your other mangoes in season?
Persimmons. Also, dragon fruit. I was in Thailand about a year ago, and I was there for 2 months, and I was just eating so much dragon fruit. Fruit, for me, the juicier the fruit, the higher the vibes for me. Yeah. If I'm eating dense food, like let's say bananas are almost sort of mimic that like cooked food experience.
Yeah,
they sort of like make me feel sort of not lethargic, but they just sort of there's something that I'm going to eat more towards the end of the day.
Okay,
melons, juicy fruit, man, our bodies thrive off of juicy, sweet, juicy things.
Yeah.
And then I think what happens is people don't get enough sweet, juicy, high-vibe foods in their diet. And then what do they want later? They want the chocolate. They want the ice cream. When they meet their body's demands for sweet, simple, juicy fruits, simple sugars, they will gravitate away from those foods that we associate as being sugar foods. People are like, donuts, they're so full of sugar. Cookies, they're so full of sugar. They're also full of about 50% fat. So is it the sugar making you fat, or is it the fat that's making you fat?
Right. So
we tend to glorify. People love to hear like good things about their bad habits, and they love the idea that we can eat all the fat and all the bacon and all the cheese and all the things we want, but just don't eat the toast with it. Don't eat the fruit. Skip the fruit, but eat the bacon. Like,
exactly.
You know, I think we've sort of gone the opposite way.
So do you eat like when you touched on a good point there of like people saying, I won't eat fruit because of that, but I'll eat the cookie. What do you eat for like desserts? Is it still just fruit?
So one of my favorite things to make is banana ice cream.
Right.
And I take frozen bananas. Bananas have to be spotty when you put them in the freezer. Don't put yellow, green bananas. Most people don't even know how to eat fruit properly. They're eating fruit that's not super high, ready to go. Yeah. So you want to make sure that it's super high quality. You want to freeze it when it's like peak ripeness. You take bananas that are spotty, freeze them. Take those, chop a few up, put a little almond milk in there, soy milk, whatever you want. Put a few dried dates in there too as well. And I'm telling you, it tastes just like ice cream. You're not getting
this. Do you blend it or?
Yeah, you just blend it. I have a Vitamix, but you could do it in something else. Vitamix obviously is really powerful, strong blender. But I mean, you're looking.
Is that like a NutriBullet, sort of?
No, they're bigger and stronger, mate.
Really?
They're decent. They're like $700, or they used to be.
Okay.
They are like the Rolls Royce of the blending world.
Of the blender, yeah.
Dude, that sounds like good dessert. I'm definitely gonna try that. We have both bananas and everything at home.
Do you have the right spottiness, or are yours a bit ripe or unripe?
I'll throw them against the wall a few times; they'll get brown.
If you have any date connoisseurs listening, they want to go with sucri dates. Sucri dates they have a caramel type flavor, and you just put a few of those. You take someone off the street and you feed them that, they're not going to want cookies afterwards because it's so incredibly good.
But there's stones in dates.
Yeah, you just have to cut them out.
Take the
pits.
It's, we use a lot of dates. Holly cooks with basically because of paleo.
Yeah, a lot of the cakes are full of dates.
Yeah, full of dates or date syrup. Date syrup's actually really good. And date paste is even easier, and then you get away from the problem that you had. You can buy like 1 kilo blocks of date paste, and they've just taken the dates and they just mince it through.
Smash them.
Yeah, into a paste, and that's a super easy way for people to. I agree with you as well. Like when you've had something like that, it's not that it tastes super sweet, or it's not that it tastes rich or anything like that, but your craving for something like chocolate or ice cream afterwards is like zero.
Yeah. And what I always say to people too is, if you're not eating fruit, if you're not eating foods that are going to nourish your body, what are you eating?
Yeah.
We all have to eat something. So the more fruit you eat, the less other crap you're going to eat.
Yeah.
You know, like there's another sort of concept which I love using when I'm working with clients who want to use weight. Essentially, we have in our stomach, we have this digital scale. Right. And we all, on average, eat the same amount of pounds of food per day.
Yeah.
So if you think about density, if you're eating foods that average 600, 700 calories per pound, where fruit averages about 200 calories per pound, you're eating a lot more calories. So you can get really full eating lots of fruits and vegetables, not restricting calories, not counting calories. You can do the same thing with rice and potatoes and all these amazing foods. People love pasta. Yeah. Again, you can't... Where people get in trouble with the pasta is instead of using like a tomato sauce, what do they use? They use some sort of creamy Alfredo sauce made with butter. And that's what causes the problem. It's not the pasta, right? It's like, go to Kenya, go to Africa, go to any country and look at what these people are eating. They're eating high carbohydrate, low fat, predominantly plant-based diets. And on occasions, when it's a special situation, they indulge, they have meats, they have some sort of thing, but it's in this celebratory manner, and it's usually shared amongst multiple people. They're not sitting down to 18-ounce T-bone steaks every night.
It sounds like you have a very educational approach with your clients, which I think is super important. I mean, we've had a lot of nutritionists on, and we know quite a lot of nutritionists, and what it seems like the kind of trend right now is that you just get thrown like some numbers in your head, in your face, and like a lot of restrictions. And with you, it sounds like you really spend a lot of time learning about the client and teaching them how to really approach their diet and with a lifestyle, more holistic way of eating.
Yeah, and I think that with me has come a long way. Okay, when you're drowning in water and then all of a sudden you get on the boat, you just want to start pulling people out of the water and you want to start saving them. And so that approach is my size, one size fits all. It doesn't work for every single person. So I think where I'm at now is when I'm working with someone, I'm saying, okay, what is your lifestyle? You're a busy CEO. You like to eat out with your friends, and you guys like to eat salmon. What else can we do during your day, whether that's breakfast, whether that's your snacks, whether that's your lunch, so that when you're going into that final meal of the night, that you've already put yourself at that gold medal standard, and then maybe now that's going to bring you back down to that bronze and silver, which we were talking about earlier. But the reality is our bodies aren't shaped from one bad food choice or one meal. It's these habits day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. So I think you got to look at the big picture. You got to have micro focus, but you got to have macro perspective.
Absolutely. Mate, you've spoken a lot about fruit. What percentage of your diet is fruit versus the vegetables? How do you balance that up? Like, do you eat a lot of vegetables, or it sounds from what we've spoken about last half hour or so that you're pretty much like 75-80% fruit?
Yeah, I would say definitely in the words like 80% or more.
Right.
For me, vegetables, bloating, gas.
Really?
That is not usually a great thing for anyone, right?
Yeah, right.
So for me, I find that pretty much everything that I can't think of anything that I'm not going to get from fruit that I should get from vegetables, right? Yeah. Like, fruit is the better choice. Vegetables tend to have more protein in them, which again is going to lead to more gas or bloating or those types of things. So if I'm having vegetables, it's not like fruit for breakfast, some vegetables at lunchtime, fruit later.
Yeah. It's
like save the vegetables to the very end of the day.
Yeah.
Because what ends up happening is people tend to feel more bloated and more gassy eating more vegetables.
Yeah. Yeah. It's. I mean, and I think that's one of the toughest things for a lot of people that have moved to a more plant-based diet. They've really gone for plants in the form of vegetables rather than fruits as well, because and that's why they're not enjoying it as much as maybe they could do, because those vegetables, and a lot of them, they stick into cauliflower and broccoli and a lot of root vegetables, they end up with some pretty decent digestive issues.
Yeah, the coniferous vegetables, they definitely can cause a lot of bloating and gas, and I think that's why you want to sort of limit your intake in on them. And I think that's why also intuitively those foods don't necessarily taste that great in their raw natural state. You eat an orange in its raw natural state, it tastes flipping amazing.
Yeah.
You eat broccoli in its raw natural state without putting salt or pepper or dipping it in hummus or putting...
cooking.
Exactly, without
gross.
cooking it tastes horrible.
Yeah.
So we have to... I think our intuitive nature tells a lot about what we're actually designed to eat.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that we've lost touch with our intuition.
Absolutely.
So we need to move back towards that.
Oh. One thing that you've mentioned a few times is protein. We know that we need a certain amount of protein. We read that we need a certain amount of protein, and we kind of prove it. If you want to build a lot of muscle, you increase your protein levels, you're able to build that muscle as well. What's your source of, like, how much protein are you getting? Is that a priority for you? Obviously, in endurance, it's a little bit different. You don't mind maybe having a little bit less muscle because it's easier to run fast with less muscle, obviously. But where are you at when it comes to protein?
So I guess when I started this journey, I was, probably I'd say more hyper-focused on those sort of biomarkers.
Yeah.
Always getting blood work done every 6 months.
Really?
And sort of always feeling like I had to prove to people that what I was doing was in fact healthy.
Yeah.
And I think now it's sort of one of those things, it's like, I just eat.
You don't care.
I had blood work done about 6 months ago.
Yep.
And everything was completely fine. Testosterone levels, all of those things are completely fine. So I think that we tend to break things down into smaller compartments, and we tend to be like sort of hyper-focused on these one things.
Yeah.
But the reality is if you look at the World Health Organization, they say we need about roughly 5% of total calories coming from protein.
Yeah.
Which, to give sort of the viewers some perspective on that, we're talking 40 to 60 grams of protein a day.
Yeah.
If you're an athlete, right? Well, are you going to be eating the same amount of calories as someone who's eating what the World Health recommendation is?
Yeah, absolutely
no, of
not.
course you're not. You're going to be eating more. So as you eat more, what else is going to naturally happen?
Yeah.
the protein numbers are going to go up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So on the days I have tracked my protein, eating only fruits with some sort of high-carb, low-fat cooked vegan meal, always upwards of 80 grams to 100 grams of protein a day.
Wow.
That's just from whole foods, okay?
Right.
Because on average, fruits average 2 to 5% of total calories coming from protein alone.
Right.
So if you literally ate only oranges, you're still going to... Oranges are actually quite high in protein. They're about 8% total calories from protein.
Don't you?
Well, it's
Love
just sort of the
stuff.
season right now. Actually, if you talk to my fiance, she'll say during mango season, that's all I talk about is mangoes.
Right. Okay.
But again, whole plant-based foods are package deals, and they have the sufficient quantities of the things that we need.
Yeah.
Now, this guy here, if I was going to, let's say I was working with an athlete and their goal was CrossFit or something, I wouldn't have them eating only fruit because you're going to get too skinny eating only fruit.
Yeah.
I would switch them over to beans. I would switch them over to lentils. I would switch them more over to like soy-based foods, like tofu, these types of things, because they are higher in protein.
Yeah, exactly.
I would be trying to hit 150 to 200 grams a day, but I'd be doing it from quality protein coming from plant-based foods. Because where did the animal get that protein? From plants.
From plants, yeah, exactly.
You want to go directly to the source and get the highest quality product of protein? Go to plants.
Man, this was a mind-blowing one.
There we go.
I got one more thing to share with you guys.
Yeah, hit it.
So a few of the other things, we talked a little bit about the Ironman that I did.
Yep.
I did that in Mont Tremblant, 11 hours, 20 minutes on, again, whole food, plant-based diet. I also cycled 6,700 kilometers across Canada on my bicycle in 42 days, so 160 kilometers a day for 42 days straight.
Wow.
When I finished that, 6 weeks later, did my Ironman, the Mont Tremblant one. And then I also ran a 50-kilometer ultra marathon, 3:32. Wow. And then my most recent athletic sort of endeavor, I cycled from Vancouver, Canada, all the way to San Diego, which was 3,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
And then I cycled across the U.S. from San Diego all the way to Clearwater, Florida, which was another 5,000 K. So 8,000 kilometers in 72 days. I'm telling you, this lifestyle, I've never felt weak, deficient on it. Nothing but positive experience. But again, your viewers, they're going to have to do the experiment themselves.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's just a matter of, hey, I'm going to have fruit for breakfast this morning. Or maybe it's like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to eat some fruit for a snack. Like, I was in this crazy mindset where I was like, don't eat fruit. Fruit turns to sugar. Sugar will make you fat. Yeah. Fruit has fiber, has vitamins, it has water, it has minerals, it has all these antioxidants. Fruit in sugar is going to behave very differently than table sugar.
Yeah, I think that's one thing. And that's the biggest thing, that a message that we're trying to hammer home to people as well, is that it is still sugar, it is still sweet, but it has a lot of other good stuff in it. Whereas your alternatives, your Mars bar, your Snickers, we all know that it probably has a lot of other stuff in, and a lot of the negative stuff that fruit doesn't bring. So that's why I actually had a client the other week, and they're looking for an evening time snack, and fruit's one of actually my go-tos for an evening time snack. And
oranges, hopefully.
No, mate. I always and this is probably a whole other show, but always try and go, especially for people on weight loss, try and go for berries. more thin-skinned fruits, the berries, because generally they are, and for the reason, and we could go back and forth on this forever, but there is a slightly less bit of sugar in it. If someone's 20 kilos overweight, we don't want to be pumping them too much.
That's interesting, because it actually tastes a lot sweeter. Like
all the thick-skinned fruit does, mate. Oranges, mangoes, bananas, pineapple. As a rule, for me, and I've used it forever, thick-skinned fruit is all a lot sweeter than the thin-skinned fruit. But the fact that the media says that blueberries are a great antioxidant is a load of made-up horseshit. But anyway, that's probably a whole other show. Matt, we've run down the clock, mate. You are a super interesting guy. We should. I'm sure we're going to get loads of response from this. We should get you back on the show in 6 months or so, and maybe dig deeper into some of the stuff that you're really doing. That was quite a nice sort of overview of what you do, and I think you've definitely made some people think. I was going to say ruffled a few feathers, but I don't really care. Made people think, ruffled feathers. It's mate, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and some really interesting things. Where can people connect with you, mate? Can we find you on Instagram, Facebook, if they want to follow your journey? Doesn't do social media. Here we go.
So I was on social media for quite a while. Yeah. Recently sort of removed myself from the social media.
Very good.
In that regard. But if people want to connect with me, if they really, deeply, truly want to connect with me, they're going to reach out to you, and you can connect them with me.
There
because
we go.
I think that it's super easy to send this super quick jab on Instagram or Facebook, or if they want to talk to me, they want to talk shop, they want some coaching, they want some actual help, send them my way, and they can get in contact with you.
So drop us an email, winning@innerfight.com, and we will hook you up with Matt. That's your first barrier. We need to see that you're serious. Matt only wants serious people. I agree.
Awesome.
There we go, mate. Thank you very much. Thanks for taking the time out. On a weekend, we recorded this one. Folks, that's been a great show.